Okay, thought I would show you the setup, preparation for the next step, which is where the tricky factor increases by about 100 here in just a second. Until now, it's been not unusual restem, but it's about to change. Just out of curiosity, I hadn't used this particular rod of ebonite before, and so I went ahead and finished up. Well, it's just a first polish, but gave the button an initial shot to see how this stuff behaved, and it seems to be pretty good. No complaints. So also it's easier. We're going to be bending the stem, and it's much easier to do buttons when it's straight and then bend it, and you can imagine. So anyway, now we've got a light tight fit and a good hydraulic snug fit, which is exactly what we want. And the next part is to extend the wood, the line of the wood, through this barrel-shaped chunk of rubber here. And you might remember this diagram from early on. And where this gets really nasty is, notice on the inside, this is not only asymmetrical and trumpet flared, but it is curved upward. This thing has it's not a straight line along the top there, meaning if you continued down the line that the wood is going in a straight line instead of a curve, you're going to flatten that off. And in this kind of design, details like that are a very big deal. That's why Tokutomi has a waiting list a million years long for his work. He pays attention to the details for sure. So we're going to do this in a very counterintuitively strange way. Most people would guess this has got to be done by hand. And in fact, I can't think of a way to do it by hand that would get the desired result. And it would be ridiculously slow if you could. So I'm going to use, I'm sure everybody everybody watching this has a familiarity with the French wheel. And what makes these guys interesting and why it is relevant is this is actually a dome. The surface of these things is curved. And that means that by moving things along, and this one's a little easier to see maybe, by moving things along this curved area, well, I can't get it focused just where I want it, but it's very difficult to describe, but easy to see in practice, that by drifting backwards and forwards, or in and out in this case, on a rotating French wheel, and also tilting the work ever so slightly, that you're in complete control of concave curves. And you can also do convex curves. This is a little similar to that. Now the catch is, the guys that use French wheels typically mount them so that the wheel is facing them like a clock, and they push the work into it. They shove it in there. And there are guys who can do magic that way. I've watched them do it. Stood there with my mouth hanging open. But they're shaping. They're going after a flow. They want whatever it is they're looking for, and they know just how to rotate these things and buzz them like that, and they'll get body English in it and the whole 9 yards. Very difficult, very tricky. But it does not give you absolute control, in the sense that we're going to be scuffing off the surface of a piece of Scotch tape which measures below 2.5 thousandths of an inch and exposing the glue layer without touching the wood underneath. We're going to use this as a mask, and the only way to do that is to have absolute control, so that your body doesn't, if you can move your body all you want, but your wrists are locked. And most importantly, it allows you, the way I've got this set up, it allows you to look down and see a light gap, so that this line I'm going to put here, pretend this is the French wheel. And you can actually look down and then move this toward that, and you will see like the gap of white there with my finger, between my finger and the black line. And you can control that down to just a couple thousandths of an inch without too much difficulty if you set it up right. And also rotational speed is a very big deal. If you go too fast, zip, you're done and you've screwed it up. So if you're going to attempt to do the kind of shaping you're going to see me do here in a minute, you need a speed control on your French wheel. And that does not, by the way, mean a rheostat from a hardware store. Those regulate voltage, and if you use them on an AC motor, like a refrigerator motor, the type of things that most of us use for buffers, it'll burn them up. They won't last long at all. And you've wrecked your machine, you got to start over. There is a type of unit that's a separate standalone box. It's actually a computer. These didn't exist before there were PCs and stuff, just a decade or two ago. They invented them. And it is designed for the specific purpose of controlling the rotational speed of electric motors from 0, meaning a dead stop, on up to however high you want them to go, the rating of the motor, so it doesn't fly apart. But they're not cheap, but they're not expensive. You can find the indexed ones for, I don't know, 150 bucks. And the sweepable ones, the high-end KB type stuff, they're a bit more. They're around $400. And the catch is you must have a 3-phase motor. They won't work on a regular 2-phase motor. So this is a long answer to a short question of, if you're going to try to level this type of stem with a curved irregular shank and follow the lines, you're either going to have to invent a way to do it by hand or copy what I'm doing, but that'll take some money. So kind of bad news either way, but what's the point in showing you all the simple and easy stuff, right, all the time? If you're not interested in this, you just move on to whatever does interest you. But I know there's a handful of you guys out there, because I've been in touch with you, who are interested in doing this collectible level repair work and restoration work. And so an adjustable speed 3-phase motor with a VFD, a variable frequency drive, is a necessity. As far as I can determine, I'm unable to do the kind of work, the type of work I want to do without it. So that's it. And I'm now going to put a layer. I got to split it lengthwise so it's narrower, but this is our fancy schmancy uber super tough hockey tape that's basically, I like the phrase, Scotch tape on steroids. And we're going to use this for the first pass, but as you know, this is fairly thick. and we won't be getting close enough to flush on the first pass. We're going to use a fairly rough wheel, fairly is relative terms, on the first go with this stuff, and then strip it off and replace it with some Scotch tape and use a finer wheel at a lower speed, and come very nearly to a point where we can polish it and be done. Not literally, but pretty close to that. So something also to keep in mind whenever you do masking like this, always protect the button. Just put a couple of wraps of something like this on there, so if you just touch it against something, it doesn't wreck it, because it doesn't take much to you touch this against a spinning wheel for a tenth of a second and it's gone. Also, the glue on tapes has odd effects sometimes with some types of finishes, and I found that it's best to be careful or be safe and shine the Stummel on a wax wheel before you start applying tape to it, and it'll put a protective layer on there. The gummy stuff comes off easier, and there's no color change from any chemical reaction that might occur. So you don't need to see me wrap something in tape, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to do that, shut the camera off. We're up to 11 minutes and 45 seconds, and I'll get it prepped up and move the camera and then actually go to work. I don't know yet how much you'll be able to see because of the weird angles involved with this super critical. It's a vertical thing. I look straight down, and I'm not sure that anything that I see can translate into a camera view from anywhere. I don't know. We'll just have to try it and find out. So anyway, that's it. See you in a minute.